is the greatest moment in my life.
Hey, yo!
Look who's back.
Back once again with the Magsy Master. What was that? What was that song? Back once again? What was that?
With the Renegade Master.
Yeah, well, yeah, obviously. They're not really singing about you, not bad, are they?
Yeah, it was DJ Wild Style.
That sounds like a completely made-up name.
No, it's definitely that.
Is
back
it?
Once again with the Renegade Master, yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go. Look at that. We're back for what? 60 seconds, and I've learned something already.
Which you'll forget in the next 60 seconds.
Yeah, no, 100%. 100%. Oh, Magsy, it's been weird, hasn't it? It's been bloody strange.
Well, we were just talking literally in the pre-record just then. It feels like we haven't recorded in absolute months. And I mean, I know it's technically it was last year, but it just I forgot how to use the buttons, how to set my markup. Yeah, it's really weird how quickly you forget.
And it is going to be a case of, forgetting. There's going to be glitches all over the place. You're going to press the wrong buttons. I'm going to screw up the running order. It's going to happen, mate. It's going to happen.
That happens when you've done the show 17 weeks in the trap.
What was it like in December after over close to 100 shows, and I forgot to plug the network's Twitter account or something stupid?
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
But there we go. Yes, we are back live on a Monday night. As always, and as mentioned, if you are watching via the SJP World Media Facebook group, and you wish to comment in the chat, please give the StreamYard the permissions that it requires, or stick your name in the chat. Otherwise, you just come up. Yeah, you just come up as Facebook user, and we don't know who the fuck you are. So, but yeah, that's the best course of action if you're on there. Otherwise, I imagine we're going to hopefully be joined by the usual motley crew from the CWF, and it's going to be great to speak with you all again.
Yeah, but I was actually nervous about that. It's when you've had an extended period off, the first thing you think is, have people moved on? Will they forget about us? Have they found something else?
Got good?
No, that's not happened in 20 years. But yeah, you're always like, you've got trepidation about whether someone's going to watch it. Luckily, the CWF haven't let us down, and they've all turned up in force.
Fantastic stuff, mate. So we best start the show, I suppose. Now we've given that standard couple of minutes for any latecomers to arrive, I guess. Now see if I can remember how to do this. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever and whenever you may be listening or watching from. This is Chain Wrestling Live with Mags and Si, an SJP World Media production, episode 105, I believe.
73 live.
73 live. Oh, it's a lot in it, eh? It's a lot.
That's too
I am Si. Too many, is it? All right, well, we'll just go back to having a break show. I am Si, and with me, as always, is the Bret Hart to my wet fart, the Hitman to my, well, you know where I'm going with that, a podcaster who never turns down an opportunity to grapple with some hot rods, the Lord Mags himself. I've missed your little chubby face, mate.
Whoa! Well, that was very negging. I've missed your little chubby face. And I've missed your massive, unkempt, homeless beard.
Mate, honestly, I need to sort it out. Sha needs to tidy this up. It's scraggly as fuck, isn't it? It's really bad at the moment. And it's so grey.
You definitely look like a hobo.
Well, yeah. If I do this, if I part it, you can see how grey that is in there. Look at all that. Honestly.
Says me who lives. It looks old AF.
Oh, no, it's so many. And the thing is, I was talking to Sha about it the other day. They grow in a different direction. So whereas my beard will grow like that, the ones on the side, especially, I've noticed the greys literally just grow out at a right angle. So they're all just sticking out like, hi, here we are.
You do look like you're auditioning to be part of ZZ Top.
I would take that. I would take that. There is a vacancy. Dusty Hill died, didn't he? So.
Oh, Jesus. Apologies, ZZ Top fans in the audience.
Hey, I like ZZ Top. I'm a ZZ Top fan. I can't play bass guitar, though, mate.
No, just wing it like they do.
Yeah. Triangle. I could be cowbell. There must be a cowbell spot in ZZ Top. Though,
I think you'd be good on the steel drums.
The steel drums. Okay. Yeah, I could do that. Bloody racket they make, though, eh? Who has joined us, Magsy, in the chat from the CWF?
So first in line, Mr. Matt Willis. Hello to you, sir. He says, takes a seat, opens a bag of mini mint aero eggs. evening
Ooh.
all. And then an update decides he's going to have a bath. So
What,
he's
with his arrow.
melted, crumbly arrow. They might force the little elbows out of it, so might do him the world of good. The amazing Mrs. P in the chat. It's
Brilliant.
Monday. I've forgotten what that means. King's Pig's Bladder. Hello, sir. How are you? Evening,
Hello.
gents. And says hello to Sharon. Connor, our brother over in the US of A, says hello, you sexy blokes. Could have you on in the background whilst I keep an eye on the Arsenal match and finish an essay. Oh well, definitely leave us on in the background, but concentrate on that essay. So it's very, very important.
What is it you're studying, Connor? Let us know, mate. Let us know what
Yeah,
you're doing.
definitely.
And I'll tell you if it's worth bothering with or not, all right?
No, don't bother learning that. Who needs maths? Who ever got anywhere learning English?
I don't sound like that.
Benny Mac in the chat asking who we are. You know exactly who we are, Benny Mac. Asking what the show is. Yeah, I mean, we don't even know what the show is. Then we've got Matt Willis saying he said he's on at 7:30, so you're fine. Yeah, there is actually a bit of time. It used to be on at 8 o'clock. Almost a competitor. Matt saying, Sharon, take a weed whacker to that before the wedding reception. To that beard, get that beard trimmed. King's Big Bladder saying, my grey hairs are well out of control. You don't want to see, man. Why do you think I wear a hat? Because I literally look like a zebra. Scottish Danny, hello, sir. Finally, Chain Wrestling has come back to YouTube, Twitch, and Facebook.
Oh, yes, indeed.
Sharon saying, Sir, you won't live up. You are so loud.
I am so sorry. Liv, if you're watching or listening, I am so sorry I woke you. She came home from school today, Magsy, so tired. Like, literally, just looked at her. She was wiped out. She was exhausted.
Was it the first day back after the Christmas period? And obviously being ill?
No. That was last week. She went back last week, yeah. But yeah, she's first day back. She said she didn't sleep very well last night, and she looked tired. Oh. So I went to go check on her earlier on, stick my head in to tell her I'm going live shortly, and I thought she'd gone out because the light was off in the bedroom.
The poor girl's fast asleep, and you just and last one for now, Connor says it's an essay for his history minor for university. It's a 5-page paper about Americans' participation in World War One. Oh, that's interesting.
Okay. Yeah, that's fair. Cool. I like history, mate. History's it interests me. So.
And a last second one, a couple last second ones. This winter has been making a lot more people exhausted. That's par for the course from Matt Willis. King's Pigs Bladder says, was that a typo, Connor? Surely you meant about WWE. Can you imagine Americans' participation in WWE in 5 pages? That's just a line per person.
1 page a decade or something, that would be, wouldn't it?
Wrestling Jeebus, hello, sir. How are you? Happy New Year to you as well. So yeah, that's a very busy chat already.
Yeah, thank you so much to everyone joining us. I want to give a shout out as well to Dan Griffin. He's been quite poorly. He recorded an episode of Doctor Who Pod with me yesterday that he struggled to get through, but he did get through it. But you could tell he was poorly then. He's been struggling with a few migraine issues and so on. And he says he is going to be listening, but not in the chat because he's just come down with something else again. So another bad head. So Matt. Dan, sorry, thinking of you, buddy. Hope you're going to get better soon, and hope that all passes, my friend.
Yeah, absolutely. We love Dan. Yeah, Cam not so much, but Dan definitely.
Maxie, what did you do for Christmas and that? Then, how was your Christmas and New Year's and stuff?
Yeah, it was okay. I mean, I'm not a massive fan of Christmas anyway. We've established this over the many conversations we've had about it, but I like it for the kids, and they all had an absolutely amazing time. Yeah, really good. We ended up, me and the wife went to the cinema on Boxing Day just for a change. We watched the Whitney Houston biopic film. Really good.
Okay.
I would heartily recommend it, even if you're not a Whitney Houston fan. It was just a really good story. And then it's just been quiet. The day after Boxing Day, I broke my little finger because trapping it in the door whilst I was taking the bins out.
in the back door.
I definitely didn't trap it in the back door. My back door is massive. I could fit the hand. I mean, no, allegedly. No, it was in the front door. A quiet, relaxing Christmas and New Year. Yeah.
Ours was very quiet because we didn't see no fucker.
Because she was pretty ill.
What do you mean? What's the air quotes for? We were ill. We were all ill.
I put it to you, sir, that you were all ill because you didn't want to watch 13 Hornswoggle versus Chavo Guerrero matches, which we were meant to do for Boxing Day. And then as soon as you heard that we were doing that, you were, oh yeah, I'm really poorly, Darren. Yeah, I can't record now till at least January.
Do you know what's a couple of things? First of all, when you said, "Oh, I'm really poorly, Darren," I was like, "Who the fuck's Darren?" But it's you, isn't it?
It is me.
and secondly, yeah, that's exactly what happened. I heard the choice for our Christmas special and thought, rather than watch all that shite, I'm going to get my whole family poorly, my in-laws poorly, risk my parents getting poorly, and ruin everyone's Christmas just to avoid watching Hornswoggle wrestle.
I mean, that's committed to the cause. If I'm not watching it, none of you are watching it as well.
Yeah, there we go. It did suck, to be honest. I mean, Sharon had COVID, I had COVID. The girls, luckily enough, didn't, but they were a bit grotty. It meant that I couldn't see my eldest daughter Anya. We couldn't see Liam, our son. He couldn't come. Oh yeah, Sharon in the chat's just saying there as well, saying it was miserable because we didn't see our son.
All joking aside, yeah, I felt so bad for you when you told me that everyone was ill, because we've been there. We've had the lurgy of COVID in this house. We had our boosters just before Christmas, and that knocked me and Lorraine off our feet for a little while. So yeah, I can understand how frustrated it must have been for you all.
Yeah, it sucks, mate. I mean, you try and look at positives in every scenario, don't you? I suppose. And me and Shah said it was good in a way because we were so restricted with regards to people coming to see us or us going out. We had no real time restrictions, or like Christmas can be sometimes. It's like, okay, we're gonna we got to do this and do that and then eat by this time because such and such is coming round, or we're going round to see that person and all that sort of stuff. So that pressure was took away, which was quite pleasant. But at the same time, it was still it was horrible not being able to see people that we wanted to see. So that did kind of suck. But there you go. It'll soon come round again, won't it?
Yeah, next Christmas.
Yeah, next Christmas. Oh dear, yes, indeed. I suppose, Magsy, we better get on and do the stuff that we normally do. What do we do first?
Normally we go, if we haven't got any pimple dicks, we go straight to the Hall of Lame.
Shall we do that?
Yes.
The Hall of
What do you got for us, Magsy?
So I actually have had a couple of Hall of Lames on the back burner, but a new story broke this week that has to be thrown instantly into the Hall of Lame. It's a new story that's dominated the world of wrestling since Thursday, when the major part of the story broke, but it's actually dominated since last July, I think, when it originally the ball started rolling. But it's going to be Vince McMahon strong-arming his way back onto the board of directors for WWE. So for those who have lived under a rock or who don't really follow wrestling news, in July, I think it was last year, the Wall Street Journal broke a story about Vince McMahon having some extramarital affairs. But the reason why it was so significant for the Wall Street Journal to get involved is that he'd been paying these females bribes to silence them, and that money was coming from WWE funds rather than Vince McMahon himself. So essentially, tax fraud. basically paying off these women who he'd been having these affairs with to cover his own back and also cover the back of some of his close team. I think John Laurinaitis was someone who took a lot of flack for it, which essentially forced the hand of Vince McMahon to resign from the board whilst an internal investigation happened. But within a few weeks of that happening, we got rumblings that Vince was regretting resigning, that he felt he took some bad advice on doing so and was looking to claw his way back. And he's managed this week to be able to do so, because yet again the Wall Street Journal on Thursday broke the story that Vince McMahon had penned a letter over the Christmas period to the board saying that he wants back on the board of directors. They contacted him back and said they don't feel it's the right time for him to do so. And then Vince used a power play because he essentially used his status as the main shareholder to stop the company selling its digital rights, to sell its media, or even to sell the company as a whole without Vince McMahon say so, and he wouldn't get that say so unless the WWE put him back on the board. So unfortunately for the company, with the digital rights being up in about 18 months, they were in a no-win position, because if the majority shareholder is not willing to come to the table and be a part of these deals, it meant the company would essentially lose out on potentially billions of revenue. So Vince not only brought himself back, he also brought along a couple of his lackeys. Ironically, two lackeys that he fired in the I think early 2022, George Barrios and Michelle, I think she's called Wilson. So that meant three other board members had to leave. So they got kicked off the board of directors for Vince and his two lackeys to be come in place. And then after I think 2 days, a couple more board members actually resigned. Two people who were very vocal in Vince being ousted from the board originally because of his financial issues, and one of them, a guy called Manjeet Singh, was actually the person who was investigating Vince internally for his issues with paying the women money from WWE funds. He's resigned over the weekend, and also Ignacio Lahoud has resigned. And today's news, like I said, this is a rolling news story, so I'm sure this is going to change over the next few days. But today's news is that Vince is actively looking to sell the WWE, and he believes that him being in place can add extra value to the sale of the company, and he's also hoping that whoever buys the company keeps him on board to run it as well. So yeah, this is my entrant this week. It's Vince strong arming and using a massive power play to essentially get away scot-free with tax fraud, misappropriation of company funds, and cheating on his wife, essentially scot-free. So yeah, it's Vince McMahon strong arming his way back to the WWE.
A very worthy entrant into the Hall of Fame. And there's so much going on with this and so many moving parts, isn't there? And it's crazy because this is a wrestling company that obviously it's not always been there, because it started way back in the 60s with Vince's dad, and I think Vince's granddad was a local promoter as well before that. But WWE as we know it, or the WWF, when it went national and so on, and then we had the first WrestleMania, and it's been the constant in my life.
Mm-hmm.
We've had other companies come and go, change names, change guises, blow up for a year or two, then disappear. The fact that this is it's the brand, isn't it? You say to somebody wrestling, they think WWE or WWF, and it's going to now be sold. It looks like,
Yeah.
and it's in this mess behind the scenes, and there is this massive uncertain future. It blows my mind. I never thought that we would see anything like this in my lifetime, anyway.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the kind of conflict for me is that 99% of wrestling fans are fans because of Vince McMahon, because not particularly because of the person Vince McMahon, but because of what he did for the wrestling business. He essentially turned it from a very small kind of niche product that was shown in territories to a worldwide phenomenon. Like the guy or love the guy, wrestling wouldn't be where it is today without Vince McMahon's foresight. But in saying that, he is still an incredibly horrible person. Even outside this issue with his philandering ways, some of the things that he's been accused of and some of the things that he's actually done are horrific, are evil, some evil stuff. But it's compartmentalizing the person from the product. And the big issue right now is that the product with Vince McMahon in charge has been awful. Outside pay-per-views, which are usually WWE knockabout of the park, the weekly show has been terrible. And then from July to now, there's been a massive renaissance. And then now Vince is coming back. I think it's King's Pig Bladder has said in the chat he wants creative back. I believe that as well. And if Vince gets his way, we're going to go back to the style of creative that was turning everybody off wrestling, especially WWE wrestling, 6 months ago. So yeah, it's just disappointing that he feels that he has to be involved.
Yeah, I mean, from one aspect, I suppose it was inevitable if he was going to weasel his way back in that he would have creative, and because it's kind of, you hear all the stories, don't you, that he only sleeps for like 4 hours a night and works 7 days a week, and he's obsessive and all this sort of stuff. If that's been your life for 40 years, to not do it all of a sudden and then have the opportunity to go back to it, most people in that scenario, if that's all they know, would do that, wouldn't they?
Yeah, and I understand that, but it's the sneaky way that he's made his way back, and it's not like he left the company on good terms. He was essentially forced out because of the bad things he did. So for him to strong arm his way back in, act like there's nothing happening, act like it's just Vince coming back for the good of the company, it just leaves a sour taste in your mouth, I think.
The money as well that his personal money that is owed back to WWE, then, for want of a better phrase, that's still owed. He hasn't paid any of that back. That's still, I think it's like $19 million, which is a big old chunk of cash, isn't it?
And the investigation is now up in the air because the person leading the investigation, Manjit Singh, resigned. So that investigation, Vince is from his communications with the board, Vince is under the impression that the investigation is over and that if he had done any wrongdoing, it would be out in the public by now. So he's using the old adage of no news is good news.
Yeah, but what I mean is as well, it's almost like the three-pronged side to it, I guess. One, we don't want the guy back involved in the wrestling company because of what he's done, don't get me wrong, but also from the creative standpoint and the fact that the product suffers. The investigation looks like it's going away because of his sneaky way of getting back into the company and so on. This money that he has taken from this publicly traded company, that affected the shareholders and all this sort of stuff, he's not going to need to pay it back now.
No.
I wonder if he was found guilty, but then didn't have to have this financial issue. I wonder if he would still be so keen to go back in, because it almost feels like on one level he can get around the finance side of things by doing this and then selling the company.
Yeah, perhaps. And it's interesting that financially the company is doing better with Vince back on board. I mean, he was made official on Friday. At the end of play today, the shares of the company are up 21%.
Mental. Absolutely crazy.
But a lot of that is because of the talk of the sale, and shares are potentially becoming more valuable, so more people are buying, and then the price goes up. But yeah, it's very underhanded how he did it, and for him to avoid this investigation, essentially. The guy who was doing it is now not part of the company. Vince is wiped his hands of it and is now back in charge. It's just cringe.
Yeah, I totally agree, mate. I totally agree. What a bloody scumbag, eh? My entrance into the Hall of Fame this week, I struggled to decide upon which way I was going to go with regards to a couple of different possibilities. And then I started to think to myself, well, why do I dislike this particular individual or gimmick? Why do I dislike this particular individual or gimmick? And I kind of ended up now just going with the umbrella of what links all these gimmicks together. And it's the generalization of this gimmick.
Okay.
The initial thing that popped in my mind was IRS. Erwin R. Shyster, ex-tag team champion, Money Incorporated, and so on. And I thought the gimmick's okay. Mike Rotunda, I don't mind at all. He was fantastic in Jim Crockett Promotions and the NWA and all that sort of stuff. Also, I didn't enjoy the likes of Corporate Kane and stuff like that. I thought it was just silly. And then the more I thought about it, the more I was like, well, why don't I like this? Why is this? Because Kane, I like Kane. Kane was a good wrestler in various different guises, heel, face, and so on. I've got no issues with Kane in particular. Why did this particular guise bother me? Why did this particular guise of Mike Rotunda's bother me? And I think I've narrowed it down. I'm going to put in this week, Maxie, wrestling in suits.
I was actually thinking, is he going with shirt and tie?
Yeah, pretty much. Mate, bear with me here. It's just fucking stupid. And there's various different reasons for it. Okay, well, look at Corporate Kane, for example. He is this monster who apparently torched his family and got scarred in a fire, and he's tried to electrocute somebody by the testicles in the past, and he's done all this evil, terrible, satanic stuff in a degree. He used to shoot thunderbolts and lasers and lightning, whatever, from his fingers, and all this crazy goings on. And now all of a sudden he's wearing trousers and shoes to wrestle in, looking very corporate, very business-like. I mean, if you read that guy's CV, you wouldn't hire him to work in your corporation, let's be honest.
Yeah,
but I've got no real issue with the Corporate Kane character itself, with Corporate Kane working with the authority, the McMahons, whatever it may well be, as a character. They're almost like their enforcer, I suppose. What I've got an issue with is when he comes to the ring in his suit trousers, belt, and shined up shoes. If you're going to stand behind the authority in a suit, that's fine. No issue with that whatsoever. But then if you're going to wrestle, put your wrestling gear on. It makes no sense. It's stupid. And it means, I sort of look at it and I think, well, if he can wrestle, and to be honest, the majority of the time win, dressed in just trousers and shoes, why is everyone else bothering to buy expensive wrestling gear?
Mm-hmm.
IRS is the next one I will come to. I understand the guy is he works for the IRS in theory, his gimmick, and he's a dodgy tax inspector and so on. So naturally he has to wear a shirt and tie and all this sort of stuff. But how many times did you see IRS, first of all, completely sweat through his gear because he's so ridiculously hot in those, shirt, tie, and what are they called, Magsy? The
braces.
Braces, that's it. I think he wore a belt and braces as well. What a tosser. But he's
wow.
But again, I can understand maybe having that initially because it's his gimmick. But could he not wear a suit down to the ring and then have wrestling gear to wear or whatever? Because again, you look at the realism of it. I know it's stupid trying to talk realism with professional wrestling, but how many times did you see this guy get throttled by his own tie?
Mm-hmm.
How many times
did you see ropes?
Hung over there, or somebody would stand on his tie when he was down on all fours and so on, right? That happened every bloody week. Just don't wear the tie anymore.
Or tuck it into the shirt.
Well, yeah, you could do that, I suppose. But to me, it's just stupid. It's ridiculous. When I was a kid, IRS didn't bother me. I booed him because he was a heel, but that was that, But now as a grown up, I look back and go, that was fucking ridiculous. And again, it comes back to that point of if my parents or my dad or whatever walked in the room and that was on the television, he'd look at this guy in a suit and just be like, oh, come on.
So what about right to censor? Did they offend because they wore shirts and tie?
Do you know what? I'd never thought of that.
And what about Bull Buchanan? Because he cut the arms off his shirt, so he was essentially wearing
Bull
a
Buchanan
vest.
Just showing his guns. That's right.
No, but you are right.
Right to censor. I didn't even think of them, but yeah, that was. I don't understand. They didn't need to be wearing those. Ivory's gimmick. I'm going to contradict myself here now. Ivory's gimmick in Right to Censor. Sorry. I didn't mind as much.
but she didn't wear a formal tie. It was more like a rough or a floppy bow tie.
Do you remember? I mean, the guy's a knobhead, but do you remember Terry Taylor when he was the tailor-made man?
Yeah.
He used to come to the ring in a suit, but then he'd take the suit off to wrestle. Why can't they just do that?
They can. Tetsuya Naito does it in New Japan.
There you go. And it works.
What about when Chris Jericho was suit wearing Chris Jericho, but he still wore his spandex to wrestling? Triple H had a period where he wore suits all the time.
Yeah. I mean, Flair is the obvious one, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And I suppose Vince McMahon. That's what Vince McMahon. Yeah, and looking at Flair as the example, how memorable was it when the likes of Ricky Steamboat would beat the crap out of him and rip his suit up when it wasn't actually a match, and he'd be talking about this suit being $12,000 and so on. You can even get stories and gimmicks out of it.
Yeah, I mean, the woo off where Jay Lethal and Ric Flair did the knee drops to their own suits.
Yeah,
and through the shoes as well.
But there we go. That's my entrant this week, my friend. People wearing suits to wrestle in. Have a word for yourselves. Give your head a wobble.
I mean, of all the things to go in a Hall of Fame, I think that may be the weirdest one. But
I don't know why, but when I was thinking about it yesterday afternoon, I got unnecessarily angry. And I thought, well, if it's getting that reaction from me, then perhaps it should go in.
It definitely, if it's getting you angry, it definitely should go in.
There we go. Those are your entrants to this week's Chain Wrestling Hall of Lame. Vince McMahon and all his dirty, sordid business and non-business shenanigans and wrestling in suits. Magsy, what have we got in the chat, my friend, before we get on to our non-wrestling topic?
Well, first of all, we've got this pile of rubbish. Don't click on any of these links, people. It's absolutely ridiculous. But we've got King's Pig's Bladder saying that we know that Vince wants creative back, definitely. Scottish Danny says Vince taking his rightful place in the prestigious Hall of Fame. I dare say it will not be the last time that man goes in. Scottish Danny also says to King Pig's Bladders, he'll get creative, and I think the rhetoric is now that he's not interested in creative, but we all know that he is, and he will get that creative back. Scottish Danny says, "Bring back Funaki, all of our problems will be solved."
Indeed.
Absolutely. Scottish Danny, I'll leave the night with you, Sharon. I don't know why. Sharon is a big hater of Funaki, and it's a bit
No, I think Sharon is saying somebody said to Scottish Danny, you know what you need to do, as in go and stab Vince McMahon, and Sharon's offering him the weapons.
King's Pigs Bladder says, I wouldn't wish Funaki on my worst enemy.
Oh, that's a bit harsh.
Yeah, Funaki is absolutely awesome. Scottish Danny, can't wait for that Linda McMahon shoot promo one day. Oh, I bet a shoot video with RF would be amazing with Linda McMahon. I bet she's got some real stories.
And it would also be incredibly monotone and robotic and wooden, because that's all she can do, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, look at the time when she was in a wheelchair. It was the best acting that she'd ever done.
Yeah.
King's Pigs Bladder saying Tony Khan is going to do Shane and Bar WWE. I'm saying I'm just hoping he sells and the new owners don't want him to do creative. Yeah, but I think that's the rhetoric that is being bandied around the wrestling news sphere, is that Vince is hoping a company like maybe Disney or NBC take WWE, but then because they tend to leave the person in charge running it as kind of like a figurehead because they don't want to have to do it. It's just incredibly just insidious, it feels to me. Matt Willis saying JP Morgan have been appointed to explore the possibility of sale. Yeah, I think Tom Campbell said on Cultaholic today that it's alternative financial strategies, which is essentially business talk for exploring for a sale. Scottish Danny saying VK Wall Street.
VK Wall. See,
that
VK Wall Street still, yeah, but even he wore a singlet when he wrestled. He come to the ring in a suit, but he'd wear see.
And also throwing a spanner in the works is Scottish Danny. How does everybody feel about the tuxedo match? Yes,
fucking stupid.
Brilliant. There we go. That's the answer, Danny. Connor saying, I believe Rat sent some war suits to wrestle. Yeah, they absolutely did. Stephen Richards definitely did wear a suit to wrestle. Rat to censor for the Hall of Fame. You know, I actually agree. I think Rat Center was a brilliant faction at the time because it did exactly what it needed to do, and that was piss people off. They were so damn good at it.
Yep.
Matt Willis saying 2007 Jericho, the suit wearing Jericho, the best at what he does. King's Pig Banner says, talking of outfits and gimmicks, the one that bugs me is Bianca Belair. It's the hair, just tie her to the bottom rope and stomp on her. That's evil as well. That hair. Was it Rhea Ripley or was it Charlotte Flair where she whipped them and then it actually cut them open with the hair? Yeah.
See, when I first saw that and she was using the hair as a weapon, I thought, wow, that's really unique. That's really clever. But now it's been done for a while. I'm a bit like, okay, I'm a bit over this.
King's Pig's Bladder saying Fanaki's awesome, but he is vicious. Well, I mean, when you're the number one SmackDown announcer, you are going to be vicious because you're gonna get a bit of an ego, aren't you?
Got to defend your spot.
Scottish Danny Gars, no Linda slander. She got the second biggest pop at WrestleMania 17. Very, very true. I'll
tell you what, that match as well, Vince versus Shane at WrestleMania 17, that match was good. Yeah. With two guys who aren't wrestlers, that match, and obviously we got to see Trish wearing those shorts. Holy crap! But it was a great match, you know.
And then when Linda stood up and kicked Vince in the grapefruits,
yeah, fantastic stuff, mate.
No wonder he went philandering 20 years later.
Philandering. Thank you so much to everybody in the chat for just getting involved. I've missed it. It's bloody great.
Yeah, it has. Yeah, it's just been it's amazing to be back. So glad. Yeah.
Speaking of getting involved, Magsy, speaking of the CWF, shall we jump into our non-wrestling topic, my friend?
Yes, let's do that.
Okay.
NWT time. Oh, no wrestling talk here. It's the non-wrestling topic.
Lovely. Nice. Lovely. Nice. Oh, lovely. Lovely.
I have missed that belch.
Oh, yeah. I've even missed the filthy belch. Because this is our, I suppose, comeback episode, our return from our little hiatus with Christmas and illnesses and so on. We thought, well, what better as a non-wrestling topic to discuss returns, comebacks, etc. Whether that be the return of TV shows, particular actors in TV shows, sporting comebacks, musical comebacks, even with regards to somebody releasing an album and then releasing a second follow-up album as well. And once again, Magsy, the CWF did not disappoint, did they?
They didn't. Came out in absolute force, like the superstars that they are.
Indeed. I will run through them on Twitter in the order they arrived into us, Mags. I bet you've not missed that.
And I'll try and find them quick enough that the comments still on the screen when you're saying it.
Awesome stuff. First of all, we have Millwall Chris at Millwall Chris1 on Twitter. He says, Bobby Ewing in Dallas, dead for a whole series until he makes his comeback in a shower scene that was described as the best shower scene since Psycho. They passed off a whole season as a dream. Probably the best comeback since Jesus Christ.
It was such bad storytelling where I've just had the weirdest dream whilst in the shower. Yeah. And his hair wasn't even wet when he got out of the shower. Just fucking ridiculous.
Well, you don't have to wash your hair every time you're in the shower, do you?
But it would get wet though, surely.
No, I often don't wash my, because my hair is quite long. If I wash it too often, it's not good for it. So I quite often not wash my hair and not get it wet.
Under a shower.
Well, yeah, because you can lower the shower a little bit, can't you? So it doesn't hit your head, you knobhead.
So the shower head would be like nose height. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, and you angle it as well, don't you? It's not like dead straight. You angle it a little bit so it comes like diagonal, and I just shower away like that. Yeah, what's wrong with that? Magsy's gone. I've disappointed him that much. He's disgusted in me. He has departed. I don't know whether he's got internet issues there, but there we go. With regards to Bobby Ewing in Dallas, I've got no idea of this. I've seen the scene when he comes back, but I know nothing about Dallas or anything like that. Magsy's back with us. Magsy, come back in the studio. There we go.
That was really weird. StreamYard literally said, we're sorry about this, but you've been kicked out.
Okay. I was just saying, with regards to Bobby Ewing in Dallas, obviously I've seen the scene when he comes back in the shower and so on. I understand how the background to it and so on. But they've written off a whole season. Did that affect any other storylines? Had other people left the show? Would they have to get them back?
I could not tell you. I was not a Dallas watcher.
Because that's quite, to me, that could be quite complicated.
Did JR get shot? They did a whole season like who shot JR as well, didn't they?
Yeah. But I don't think that was the same season, was it?
Maybe. I have no idea. But it was ridiculous. Whichever way you spin it. I will definitely not ever look into that. Ever.
Sharon, I will tell you now, look away when Magsy finds this comment because it's a picture I know that you're not fond of. We have Danny at Scottish Juggalo on Twitter.
Jesus, yeah.
And he says, it's got to be Sid Vicious. Went from having his legs snapped clean in half to 11 years later having his last match on WWE TV. That injury is terrible, isn't it?
Yeah. There's not many things in wrestling that make me want to throw up, but watching that and probably Vader and his eye hanging out of his socket are the two that really met the vomit come up. Yeah, it was horrific, and it was all because was it Eric Bischoff told him that he needed to add more spice to his move and he needed a move from the top rope, and the guy was nearly 7 foot. He didn't do top rope moves. And then when you see the weight just go on his leg and his leg says, nope, this is not happening, and snap. If it wasn't for his boot, that leg would have just come clean off.
If you've not seen the video, first of all, if you're squeamish, do not watch it. But if you are intrigued, you can find it on YouTube and so on. Poor Sid, old jelly shins himself.
That's what you get for stabbing Arn Anderson with scissors.
Indeed. In Blackburn, that was, wasn't it?
It was, yes.
It was in Blackburn, just up the road from you, Magsy.
Yeah, well,
you know,
along the road. Okay. It's literally 11 miles away from me. Yeah.
Okay. At Good Bad Baseball, which is a new show that I believe Graham is working on, we have here Greatest Comeback, and you're going to have to bear with me, Mags, because I'm going to butcher this.
It's Albert Pujols.
Pujols. Yeah. Return to the St. Louis Cardinals. Oh my goodness. The St. Louis...
Pujols, you nailed. The Spanish word you nailed.
Yeah.
Cardinals.
I couldn't say Cardinals.
Word you couldn't. Yeah. Brilliant.
I'll try that again. Greatest Comeback. And the thing is as well, for the audio version, which comes like Wednesday, I'll cut all that shit out so the people who listen to that version of the show won't realize I screwed it up. Greatest Comeback. Albert Pujols return to the St. Louis Cardinals and hitting his 700th home run in his final season. I'm assuming 700 is a lot. I know nothing about baseball, mate.
It's just rounders for grown-ups, isn't it?
Okay.
It is, though.
It's just rounders for grown-ups. I know. We also have one here from Good Cop, Bad Cop Wrestling Podcast at Good Bad Wrestle on Twitter. And they say, at the Matatat UK, returning to the commentary booth for CXW for the semi-finals and finals of their last event. He may have mentioned it on Good Cop, Bad Cop once or 10 times.
But that's amazing news. It's really good for Matt. I mean, you've done some commentary as well. The buzz and the thrill from being involved in wrestling in even in some small way. Yeah, that must be amazing. So yeah, props to Matt and yourself for being able to do that.
Yeah,
and Connor's done some as well, hasn't he? I think.
Yes, I heard Matt's, and it's good. I loved it. Really good stuff. Matt's enthusiasm really shines through when he's doing it.
Awesome.
So yeah, it's great stuff, Matt. I was asked to go back and do a bit more for the one company, but I kind of said no because I wasn't too keen on certain stuff that went on. But I won't dive into too many details there. But let's just say,
that's intriguing.
Well, it just could have been a bit more professional, but let's leave it there, shall we?
They did hire you to do commentary.
They did, mate. They did, and believe me, I was one of the most professional things they had. So if
Jesus wept.
Connor, our good friend in the chat there, cheering on Arsenal while studying World War One. At Connor Knows Footy on Twitter. He says the 2022 College Basketball National Championship Kansas team, the team he supports and has done his whole life, was down by 15 at halftime to North Carolina and went on to win the game by 2 right at the very end. I cried like a baby that night. Finally got to see one of my teams win a title. And that's amazing. I mean, not just the emotion of seeing your team win something, but the emotion of a comeback like that in the last moment. And that's why sport is great, isn't it?
Yeah, and the ability to see it 18,000 years in the future as well, with him putting 2022 too.
Exactly. There we go.
But no, that's amazing. That's really
I'm going to put some money on that.
That Back to the Future Grey Sports Almanac.
This thing, everyone's fully aware that I'm a proper nerdy geek into my time travel programs. Anything time travel, I love. I watch all these people like Doctor Who and Dr. Sam Beckett on Quantum.
Don't you call Back to the Future now? You're not.
What?
Are you going to slate Back to the Future?
No, of course not. I love Back to the Future. I'm just saying you've got all these different people who use time travel and so on, and they use it for good. I would 100%, if I had the facility to time travel, use that to benefit myself. I would have the lottery numbers. I would have who wins every horse race from now until Christmas.
You'd just be Biff Tannen.
Yeah, pretty much, mate. Pretty much. And I'm completely okay with that. At Pigs Bladders on Twitter, he says, seen the band Kiss a few times over the years. Always regretted not seeing them in the original face paint. And then out of nowhere, they bought it back, blatantly a cash grab, so I could sort of tick that off my list. Now, I've seen Kiss. Sharon in the chat, help me out if you know. I think it must be 4 or 5 times now, maybe, something like that. But always painted up. And I've seen them on reunion tours and the comeback tours and so on. My favourite era of Kiss, though, is when they took the makeup off in the 80s. And it was a bit more hair metal, a bit more glammy. And I was too young to see them then. So I wish I'd seen Kiss the times that Pigs Batter here says he did see Kiss. So,
you would have loved to have swapped with.
Yeah. I'd love to have seen Kiss when they were like, the sort of what would have been Crazy Nights era, I suppose. Hot in the Shade was the album and so on, That's my favorite era of Kiss.
I know very little of Kiss. And they did a song called Love Gun, didn't they?
That's right.
That.
Yep.
About a penis.
Pretty much, mate. Pretty much. And when we saw them live, me and Sharon a couple of times doing that, he takes off. Paul Stanley, the main guy, takes off the stage, flies over everyone's head, lands on a tiny little platform at the back, and plays that song to the people at the back before flying back to the stage again.
That's actually
amazing.
Awesome. I mean,
the stuff they do is incredible.
It's not my genre of music. We've discussed this multiple times on the show, but I do like the entertainment of Kiss. They know how to put a show on.
Yeah. Yeah, I get you. And the thing with Kiss as well is they are about the live performance, I suppose, almost more so than the recorded music, I think. So, yeah, definitely worth checking out if you get a chance to see them. Like, well, they're doing their farewell tours now, but there we go. It seems like they've been on a farewell tour for about 10 years.
When this farewell tour, it's like a DFS sale.
Yeah.
When one ends, the next one starts.
There we go. Pigs Brothers continues here. As an Arsenal fan, the return of Thierry Henry to the club in 2012 and scoring the winner against Leeds will always be special for him. At Connor Knows Footy may agree, he says here. I remember that, Henry coming back. He seemed taller.
He may have been wearing shoe lifts.
He might have been. Maybe. I don't know why. I know that's a really weird thing to say, but he seemed taller when he came back.
Yeah, that is weird because he probably wasn't. Maybe the rest of the Arsenal team had just gotten shorter.
And every defence he played against.
Well, yeah, maybe.
Footballers in general in England just shrank in Thierry Henry's absence.
The average heart of an English defender shrunk by 3 inches.
Yeah. Our good friend Dan Griffin at Dan Griffin 21 on Twitter. He says, with comebacks, I think boxing. So many boxers tried to come back when they shouldn't. Ricky Hatton, Sugar Ray Leonard, Roy Jones Jr. all returned and suffered crushing defeats, even Ali. But then you get George Foreman coming back at 45 to become the unified world heavyweight champion, which is awesome. Yeah, so many of them just seem like they can't let go, don't they?
Yeah, it's. I think it's almost like it's a drug. We get it a lot as well in MMA. So many fighters just think they've got one more fight in them, and more often than not, they end up getting knocked out or getting beat, or in some cases even getting like severely injured. Yeah, it's sometimes when you're being punched in the face and head a lot, you don't make the best decisions for your health.
Yeah, I mean, because it is incredibly dangerous, isn't it? Let's be honest, coming back at that age. And yeah, there we go. Rob at UTT Rob on Twitter says the American remake of The Prisoner in 2009 was awful and hardly related to the iconic British 1960s version.
I mean, he didn't need to put of The Prisoner in 2009. He just needed to put the American remakes of British versions because they are all terrible.
Yeah, pretty much. They're re-showing the original one, aren't they? What channel is that on? Is it Alibi or something like that on one of the 3 channels on cable?
It could possibly be.
Rob says as well, Andy Booth back at Huddersfield Town was awesome.
Yep, Huddersfield legend, Andy Booth.
Okay. The best TV returns has to be Star Trek. They did it twice with The Next Generation and Star Trek Discovery. Amazing returns after years off TV. Okay, I wouldn't have thought about that, but yeah.
Just tosh, innit?
It's just tosh.
Crap.
I'm glad to see that you're after you're being away for many weeks, you're willing to just come back and just start pissing people off and upsetting everyone again.
That was my New Year's resolution, to be more upbeat and accepting of other people's ideas. But then Matt mentioned aero balls, and it just got me mad. So there we go. You ruined
easily,
it, Matt, for everyone.
Easily triggered, Magsy. Easily triggered.
Yeah, exactly.
We have a bit more here from Dan Griffin responding to Rob, actually. And he says he'd go as far as to say the vast majority of American remakes of British shows have been shit, especially in the last 25 years. Shameless and In-Betweeners spring to mind as gross offenders. The In-Betweeners. Oh, my God.
Yeah, that's grim. They did an RT Crowd pilot, which was just the worst thing ever. Shameless, I would say that may be an outlier for me because I do like the way they made it more dramatic than the British like kind of comedy version. Plus, I also know Paul Abbott, the writer, so they have a bit of a soft spot for the American Shameless. But yeah, 99% of American remakes of British shows are horrific.
The remake of The Office. There's a lot of people that would say that's better. Yeah, but we've been through this before. You haven't got
not going to watch. I'm not going to watch season 1 or 2. It's terrible. Steve Carell should be disgusted in himself.
You can't make comment on that if you've not watched it, though, can you? Surely.
Do you comment on things that you haven't watched? Yes, you do.
Like what?
House.
I've never seen House. I don't know whether it's good or bad.
There you go. But you made a comment.
Yeah, but I'm not like, oh my god, I'm not. All right, let's move on.
See, I win via just grinding you
Right,
down.
just grind. Just yeah, you get the submission because I'm exhausted from fighting back. At Joshua Goodwin PW on Twitter, the king himself, also currently going through a few medical issues, which are
Wow.
not the best, which is why NXT Rise and Fall has been put on the back burner for a while. So I want to wish him all the best and hope he gets better soon. It's been quite a long-term thing there, so hopefully he's fighting fit again very soon there.
Got
Joshua.
everything crossed for you, Joshua.
Yeah. He says a bunch of wrestlers spring to mind: Regal, Goldust, Shawn Michaels, all somewhat similar stories of redemption and overcoming demons, etc. Scott Hall and Jake the Snake, Lex Luger, even Buff Bagwell. But for him, a lesser-known comeback, at least in this country, would be Vader. He went from being a fat piece of shit to All Japan's Triple Crown champion, having some of the best feuds and matches of his career. Shows how much confidence will do for you. The recent returns of Edge, Daniel Bryan, and Paige are testaments to the leaps forward in medical science and their inability to let their dreams die and working to prove experts wrong. Yeah, I think that's pretty much fair enough on all those points, Magsy.
Yeah, absolutely amazing. The thing with Vader as well, though, he went from bad to amazing back to bad when he came to WWF.
Yeah, he is WWF, and I thought it was a real shame as well because, I mean, obviously, WCW went on to be, the biggest company in the world in the late 90s and so on. But the WWF has always been the company, the brand. And when you look at how great Vader was in WCW, All Japan as well, but WCW in the early 90s, you'd love to have seen that version of Vader with McMahon and the whole machine of WWE behind him. Because he wasn't in WCW when it was a good company by any stretch of the imagination. It just didn't work out, mate, did it?
No. And a lot of that was politicking. Especially with Shawn Michaels. I think if Vader would have had a run as world champion, or at least come out of that Shawn Michaels feud looking stronger than he went in, maybe it could have gone a lot better. But yeah, once Shawn Michaels gave him the kiss of death, it was pretty much all over for him.
Yeah, he was supposed to have a world title run, wasn't he? The run that Sid had, where he beat Shawn Michaels at Survivor Series at Madison Square Garden in '96, and then dropped the belt back to Shawn in the San Antonio Stadium. That was supposed to have been Vader. It was supposed to be like a best of three kind of thing with a SummerSlam match as well. But yeah, a bit of a shame. But he didn't look after himself either, mate, did he? His diet was shocking, and he was a big fella.
And he could be a bit of a dick backstage as well.
Apparently, he was a bit smelly as well.
Oh, Jesus. That's the last thing that you would want your champion to be.
He didn't wash his gear, apparently. According to Bruce Pritchard on his podcast, he said that a big issue, he had to take Vader to one side and say, you need to wash your gear after each match, because he would just wear it night after night after night, and then people were coming and complaining. So,
jeez.
But I mean, I didn't have to wrestle the guy. I didn't have to smell him. I'm a big Vader fan. So,
And to be fair, didn't he have a very late renaissance with a barnstorm of a match against Will Ospreay after they had a bit of back and forth over Twitter? So he's done the gamut twice. He's gone from poor to amazing to poor to amazing. So props to Vader.
Yeah. Joshua does continue. Moving away from wrestling, Muhammad Ali returning to boxing and reinventing himself boxing-wise. Tyson Fury's return is one of the most inspiring stories of modern times. And then the possibility of bad comebacks, Joshua says, maybe Donald Trump next year.
And perhaps even Boris Johnson, who's talking about another run as Conservative leader.
Oh, dear God.
Yeah, but the Tyson Fury is an interesting one. Yeah, I really... I like it. I mean, he says some controversial things, and he has some like weird mindsets, but I love his openness and his honesty about him suffering with his mental health, and he kind of he proves that not all that glitters is gold, because he had the world on his plate and he felt like the loneliest person in the world. So sometimes fame and fortune isn't all it's cracked up to be, and he's a great proponent of just being happy with the simple things in life.
Yeah, that's fair enough, mate. We now come to the Total Stevo section of the show, at Total Stevo on Twitter. I want to give a shout out to Stevo as well, actually, very quickly. His podcasts he's doing, I know I mention this quite often, but his podcasts he does on music and so on, absolutely fantastic. But he's also doing a rewatch of, I suppose you call it the Summer of Punk, but he started right back at the start of that calendar year. And he's pulling no punches. If it's something he doesn't like, he is very quick to tell you how bad he thinks it is. And
That's
it's a fascinating, yeah. And it's a fascinating listen. Love it. And I've been fortunate enough to pop on there and talk about certain pay-per-view with him. I know Scottish Danny's also guested on an episode that's going to be coming out soon. Yeah, well worth checking out the Total Stevo podcast on all your podcast players there. Stevo says, so recently, the amazing Detectorists returned after 5 years for a one-off special. Sadly, it just didn't do anything for me. Important stories glossed over and just felt disappointed after. Now I wish I'd left it as it was. I've not seen that, Magsy.
Yeah, I don't. I've seen some of it. I don't really remember. Like, it's the Mackenzie Crook. Is he called Mackenzie Crook? The guy from Gareth from the original Office. He's in it. I remember it being really good, but I don't know why we stopped watching it. But I've not seen the Christmas special. I saw Mackenzie on the One Show promoting it. But yeah, it'd be disappointing if it doesn't live up to scratching. I'm sure Steve-O's opinion is incredibly valid on it, because he tends to he does have really good opinions about stuff. So yeah, I'll give it a watch and maybe I'll report back, maybe I won't. Who knows?
That's blatantly not going to happen. Steve-O continues. John Cena, when he returned in 2015-16 and was the US champ and had these brilliant matches, including his rivalry with AJ Styles, was a good comeback. I completely agree. That open match, US title, open challenge. Some brilliant stuff by Cena. Really good. Frank Burnside in the Bill had an incredible comeback after being off screens for 6 years or so. In fact, a lot of returnees to the Bill always were perfectly done, which I think would be a testament to how well written that particular show must be then, Magsy.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't watch a lot of the more recent Bills, but the older Bills, yeah, I used to love it. It used to be a mainstay in my house.
Okay. I've not seen a great deal of it, to be fair. I don't really know masses about it. So Steve-O did say on Twitter to me the other day that some of the earlier Bills I would enjoy, because a lot of them are standalone stories. And he says that when I'm covering Murder in Mind with our buddy Morty for the Murder in Mind pod, there's a lot of similarities to what we're talking about on that show to early episodes of the Bill. So maybe if they are standalone stories, maybe Steve-O chuck us a couple of suggestions for episodes to check out, and I'll dip my toe in and have a look, Bags.
Yeah, some bonus reviews of it.
There we go. Watching 2011 WWE, Steve-O says, The Rock's return after a 7-year hiatus for his promo battle packages against Cena were probably the best thing leading up to WrestleMania 27.
Was that the whole Fruity Pebbles, you can't see me, I can see you, you can't see me?
Around that time, I think, yes. And WrestleMania 27, there wasn't a great deal going on that was good. So,
yeah, I mean, I feel that maybe is some of The Rock's weaker promos. I think his peak in like the tail end of the Attitude Era was better, but I do also agree in 2011 that was some of the best stuff that WWE was putting out.
Yeah. At Wernham Blog podcast returned after a year or so, talking Extras season 2, and it was brilliant. Hopefully they finally get round to the Christmas specials. It's been over a year now. Hey, lads, Steve-O says. Steve-O also continues, lots of the MySpace deathcore acts' second albums or first album after an EP were usually poor. Job for a Cowboy, All Shall Perish, Suicide Silence, Postmortem Promises, Winds of Plague, all just fell flat. Yet ironically, in the third album, if they still existed, they learned from this and were epic.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, well, we had a little chat about this in the lead up to this topic about sophomore albums and how a band can hit the ground running with the first release and then kind of fall flat on the second one. But it's all about growth and kind of the second album always seems to be, we've got to maintain, we've got to kind of keep that lightning in a bottle. And sometimes it doesn't work out. And then when you've had that kind of flop, you can then almost test yourself musically with like the third, fourth, fifth releases. So it sometimes it's just trying to recapture that buzz of the first release, I suppose.
Again, there's another episode of Steve-O's podcast literally looking at the bands that were from other topics around this time as well, covering a great deal of music, but a lot of focus on bands that made it big via MySpace and those EPs and the deathcore acts and so on. I find that, even though I didn't know a lot of the artists, I found that episode absolutely fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
Steve-O continues here. Pains me to say, but Jesse Leach returning to Killswitch. He's very good at what he does, but when Howard left, albeit under some extremely dark circumstances, they were heading for the moon. Jesse comes back and they're just meh. Again, still good, just not at that next level. And that I'm completely on board with that. I saw Killswitch with both singers, and it's a different level when Howard Jones was singing for him. But I mean, it's still good with Jesse, but it's just not the same, mate. It's not the same.
Yeah. I haven't heard any of them, so
okay.
Really,
you would know some Killswitch if you heard it. You'd be like, "Oh yeah, I know that."
Yeah, did Edge not have a Killswitch, or Randy Orton have a?
Yes, CM Punk. The first Punk theme was Killswitch as well. It was used on pay-per-view as well. That's it. Yeah, yeah. And that was with Howard Jones singing.
Yeah, well,
so
I like his voice.
He's superb, mate. Steve continues. In fact, Jesse and Adam D's Times of Grace, 11 years after an excellent first album, second one released last year, is atrocious. And he'll call it a day on this. Peep Show's final series, I believe, was 2 to 3 years after season 8. It's considered the worst series by many fans. I refuse to watch it. It's that bad. The ideas were there, but the execution was bad. And the new characters just didn't fit in that world. That's a show I think that could return for another series. Rumors suggest Line of Duty next year at Christmas, hopefully, as the ending was appalling.
Line of Duty, not a program that I've ever watched, but Peep Show, yeah, I agree with him. The final season it felt like it was part kind of an attempt to tie all the loose ends up, but also then part cash grab. Yeah, okay. It didn't have the rawness of the early seasons.
Okay. I mean, I love Peep Show, but I can't remember the last season. So maybe I watched it and it was terrible, and I've not watched it back, or I've just never seen it.
I would assume that you've watched it.
I'd guess so.
Yeah.
I guess so. And finally, and this one is not via Twitter. This is from WhatsApp, Magsy, from our good friend, Mr. Matt Willis. And he says, well, first of all, welcome back, boys. No, cheers, Matt.
Oh, thank you very much.
There's been some great comebacks over the years, and yours is 100% the best. Have a good night. Ta-da. That's what he's put. No, I lie. He hasn't put that at all.
This is the worst one.
He said there's been some great comebacks over the years, so I'm going to go for the bad ones. Robbie Fowler going back to Liverpool for a second time, ravaged by injury, and it didn't work out. Michael Jackson's last comeback gigs, he never even made it to the stage. Cristiano Ronaldo to Manchester United, enough said.
Yeah.
Michael Schumacher to F1 after 3 seasons being retired, scored 1 podium, then gave the same seat to Lewis Hamilton, who won 6 titles in that car. And one last one for you. Mags will appreciate this as a bad comeback. Royce Gracie, winner at UFC 1, 2, and 3, came back at UFC 60 to face Matt Hughes. He was TKO'd by Hughes in the first round and never fought in the octagon again.
Again, we mentioned it earlier. MMA tends to have a lot of fighters who just don't know when to give it up. Yeah, it's sad. Yeah.
Yeah, fair enough. What about yourself then, Magsy? What have you got? Anything in mind?
Yeah, the first one that come to my mind was one that you literally just mentioned, or well, Matt just mentioned, Cristiano Ronaldo. I think this last season and a half has really kind of sullied his legacy at Manchester United, especially with his the stories of his attitudes behind the scenes. Another one, Lukaku. I know he had a lot to prove at Chelsea, being the only club that he didn't really get a chance to be a big star at, and comes back in a world record transfer fee, all guns blazing, blah 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 blah, and was a massive flop. So yeah, I think that was two big ones in terms of music. There's a couple of bands that like I mentioned had sophomore albums that just were just awful compared to the original. There's an album called Overkill from this band Motorhead. Yeah, that was just, I mean, the original album wasn't anything to write home about, but God, Overkill was wank.
I think they both came out within like 5 months of each other as well. I genuinely, I think they did.
And there's another album that really kind of just wound me up called A Beautiful Lie, the follow-up to 30 Seconds of Mars' debut album.
Mate, she will be in that little Sharon will be in that little Hyundai Gets on our driveway and halfway to Burnley before we finish this podcast. I'll tell you now.
In fact, they peaked. 30 Seconds of Mars peaked at the debut. Everything else has just been horrific, hasn't it? This is War. What a terrible album.
Oh my God.
Love, Lust, Faith and Dreams. Eek, Jesus. I mean, there's not even a good title there. Never mind album. And the less we say about America, the better. Not just in this album, just in general.
Sharon in the what a toss pot. Yes, Sharon, you are right. He is.
I just love stirring.
What a bastard. Mine are pretty much music based as well, I suppose. I mean, with
You
Ronaldo.
shock me.
Well, yeah. I mean, first of all, the football wise, with the Ronaldo one, I get that. It ended so badly. But the first season he was there, he scored 20 odd goals. He was our top goal scorer. He was relatively important to us that season because he scored goals and picked us up points that we wouldn't have had.
Absolutely.
But the way it ended was not a good look at all, was it? With keeping with the Manchester United theme, I'd say Paul Scholes, when he came back for a season and a half, he was, again, it just showed how good this guy is. Just unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable. The fact that he can retire, go away for a while, come back and win another Premier League trophy is just incredible. Music-wise, Motley Crue coming back after signing contracts to say that this is their farewell tour, and they signed all these contracts in the big press conference. They were definitely not coming back, and then coming back. And Vince Neil is just, he sounds horrific now. He is terrible, and it's just a massive cash grab. It's awful, absolutely awful. Sharon there in the chat saying that's Mag's not getting any of my new merch.
And if you want some of that merch that I'm definitely not getting, definitely go and check out our BF Luxuries.
There we go. The big one for me, though, Maxie, the biggest one for me with regards to a musical comeback would be when Bruce Dickinson went back to Iron Maiden. Now he's the guy that ever won that Run to the Hills, all the big hits that people are familiar with when you say Maiden. He left for 2 albums in the 90s. When Bruce came back in 99, they went on. They recorded a new album, went on this big tour, and the 1999 release, Brave New World, I put it up there against anything else Maiden have done in their best part of 45, 50 year history. Brave New World is absolutely incredible, and it's so much. I think it's better than everything that people refer to as classic Maiden. That to me is probably one of the best musical comebacks going.
Can't disagree with you because I'm not an Iron Maiden fan. So
Well, there we go. Thank you so much, everybody, for tweeting into the show, messaging into the show, and so on with topics for our, responses, I guess, for our non-wrestling topic. I've missed that. I've bloody missed it, Magsy.
You are all amazing. Honestly, it's just like we said at the top of the show. You always have this like little bit of nerves that people have forgot or people have moved on. But yeah, the fact that you all still chipped in and with some amazing answers, we massively appreciate you all.
Shall we have a quick scan through the chat then before we dive into probably should talk a little bit of wrestling because, as we say, this is a wrestling podcast.
Absolutely true. But let's have a look through some of this chat. So Matt Willis saying, can we have confirmation that Sai is a dwarf? I mean, you are giving off Gimli, son of Gloin vibes.
I'm giving off what?
Gimli, son of Gloin from The Lord of the Rings.
Oh, I've got no idea what that is.
Sharon, just smooth over that one. Sharon saying, for fuck's sake, she looked when you said her name, the Sid
picture, yeah.
Thing,
sorry, Sharon.
Just disgusting. Connor saying nothing better than in person playing play by play. You feel the feed off the crowd in turn gets you excited. Talking about his time doing commentary. Yeah, it's amazing. I'm so proud of you all for being able to pull that off. King's Pig Bladder saying that's when he saw Kiss, but he wanted the era that you saw Kiss, which is it's a weird irony that you both saw the eras of Kiss that you didn't want to see.
Well, no, I was happy seeing it, but I kind of feel like I've missed out. Yeah. I'm just greedy.
Connor says he loves him some boxing, nothing better than two dudes slugging it out for 12 rounds, and then you watch some boxing afterwards. Yeah, it's amazing. Original Prisoners is one of King's Pigsbladder's favourite shows. He loves it so much, and he wants to know when you're doing a podcast on Prisoners.
I've got no time to start new projects.
No, he definitely hasn't. He absolutely hasn't. Matt Willis says he apologises for nothing regarding the aerial balls, and then says, talk at the table flashback. Fuck you, Osprey. Actually, it was Wet Wipe Willie. That's where we christened him, Wet Wipe Willie.
Right, okay.
Connor says, Howard Jones is with a band called Light the Torch now. I think it's been about a year or two since they released some new stuff.
Oh, okay.
Matt says, unfortunately, he's got to be up for work in 6 hours, but he'll catch the pod. Good night. Hope you have a good shift tomorrow. And thanks for tuning in. Sharon calls, I'm assuming, me a tosspot because of my slating of 36 tomorrows. I am only jesting, and that's me not getting any merch, and I'm going to be charged double. That's mean. After all the nice things I said about the debut album, just because I slagged off the other four. Dear. But yeah, that's the it's King's Pigs Bladder saying it's on par with classic Maiden for him. So
okay, yeah, I can take that. Yeah, fair enough.
There we go.
So then, let's dive into a bit of wrestling, Mags.
And for the first time in forever,
let's get ready to rumble!
Okie doke. So I think this was your choice?
Yeah, I mean it was so long ago. Who did choose? Who knows? Yeah, definitely man. Yeah.
Right, okay. We have WrestleMania 8, the Intercontinental Championship match from that show, April the 5th, 1992, from the Hoosier Dome. Bloody massive place, that, let's be honest.
Yeah, it's huge.
Absolutely gigantic. And it's Bret Hart is the challenger, and he's going up against Roddy Piper in his one singles championship title run that he had in his whole WWF career, which is crazy, for the Intercontinental Championship. Magsy, I've not seen this for quite a while. And first of all, what still struck me about it was it's as good as I remember. I really enjoyed it. Yeah. But it seems a lot shorter than I remember.
Really?
Yeah, I thought it was much longer.
And it's so early on the card as well.
Yeah.
I think it's like maybe the third, fourth match on the card, which, yeah, it always shocks you when you think of Bret Hart, you think of Roddy Piper being these massive stars, and they're like third match on the card. But yeah, I watched it fairly recently. We covered it on that 90s Wrestling podcast for a pay-per-view review. So yeah, this is relatively fresh in my mind. So there's a little bit of backstory to why Piper actually got this title. Essentially, in the run-up, the year before, Bret was actually thinking of leaving the WWF. He was entertaining offers from WCW, but he was the current Intercontinental Champion, and he didn't actually realize that his contract automatically rolled over when it got to a certain date. So he had another year on his contract to go. So he was frustrated. Vince McMahon wanted to give him a bit of time to cool off. So that's when they kind of had him drop the title at a house show with the whole 121 Degree Fever storyline. That was to the Mountie. And then once cooler heads had prevailed, Vince said that Bret was going to be the future of the company. The title was then essentially put back on Bret via Roddy Piper to kind of give him the rub of being a big star.
Yes, indeed. And that's interesting as well. You mentioned the whole, he was talking to WCW in 92 or late 91. That is spot on the money. He was talking to them without speaking to the WWF. He was still the reigning Intercontinental Champion.
Well, yeah, he assumed his contract had run, and he was looking to jump.
Exactly.
It was only after speaking with WCW that he realized his contract automatically renewed after a year for another year. So, yeah, he was very frustrated.
People need to, I think, sometimes bear that in mind when we're talking about Montreal. But there we go. I'm not going to dive in too deep into it because people jump to Bret's defense all the time. Poor little Bret. Blah, blah, blah.
Daniel.
Yeah, he was negotiating behind WWE's back to jump ship while still the IC champion. That's basically the situation. But there we go. We get an interview here with Mean Gene Okerlund just before the match, and we've got both competitors. And first of all, it's a weird scene anyway because you don't tend to see that very often, do you? They tried it a few times in the sort of early-ish 90s. I remember there being another one that involved Bret at King of the Ring 93 with Mr. Perfect. For me, these kind of things don't quite work, Mags. What did you think?
I think this may be one of the best WrestleMania kind of like little interview spots in history. I absolutely love this.
Okay.
For me, Piper may be one of the very best on the mat when it comes to promoting a match. He's had his controversy, lest we not forget the Bad News Brown half blacking up incident. But this one in particular, I enjoy because it's building Bret as a character for me. Piper is saying all of the words, but it's actually Bret that is getting the kind of pushing character because it's all about Piper kind of almost belittling Bret whilst paying him compliments, and then we see the point where Bret snaps. And then Piper reaching him to behind the belt for the tape, and then going full pirate mode at the end, like not today, she be mine. Brilliant.
And that IC title belt, it was referred to as well as the IC Championship by Mean Gene.
I have it up there.
You do indeed. Referred to as the IC title, which is because that doesn't normally happen on WWF or WWE television.
Intercontinental.
Yeah, so that was a bit weird, but yeah, it's a beautiful looking championship, isn't it?
It is. It absolutely is.
For the introductions, then we've got an incredibly long walkway because this place is massive. I quite like that at a WrestleMania because I like them to have their music play for a while, have these longer walks down to the ring. It just feels more important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you are absolutely right. How many times have we mentioned on this show things like where a Royal Rumble where there's such a short entrance ramp that it kind of like harms the match. So yeah, I agree with you. It adds to the importance, I suppose, of the event, the spectacle of the event.
Yeah. During these long introductions, though, we have Gorilla Monsoon mentioning that, Roddy Piper, this is the only piece of gold Hot Rod has held. To which Bobby Heenan responds, and he doesn't deserve it, which I thought was just fantastic, just so quick. And Heenan is just on Nitro Nights at the moment with Scottish Danny. Bobby Heenan is in absolutely fantastic form every time we hear him on commentary. He's at that point in his career where he's just absolutely on fire, and I think we get that here as well.
Yeah, there's a point that I always giggle at where Bobby Heenan's saying, "Oh, I'm going to be in Sheffield in 3 weeks," and Gorilla Monsoon's like, "Is it a round trip?" And Bobby's like, "Wow, are you coming?" He went, "Unfortunately." It's just the chemistry between these two guys is just you can't learn it. You can't learn that kind of chemistry. You've got to be born with it, and those two, they just played off each other so perfectly.
Yeah, they were brilliant. Just before the match starts, we get the shot from the hard cam. So we're looking at the two wrestlers in the ring, staring across each other, the referees there as well. And a few fans try and unveil a massive 4 Horsemen banner in the crowd behind. And the security are lightning quick over to them. And the camera cuts to a really strange shot of the back of Roddy Piper's head, just so we don't see the flag being unveiled that says 4 Horsemen. That really tickled me.
That's amazing.
The match starts, I suppose, with a little bit of proper wrestling, I guess. We have a few arm drags back and forth. We have a test of strength. We have a go behind, a waist lock, and so on. And I liked this because it was Piper who started to get a bit frustrated and then inevitably spat at Bret Hart and started throwing a few punches.
Grim.
Oh, yeah, it's disgusting. Of course it is. But all the way through this match, well, no, that's not correct. Sorry. Not all the way through this match. It's the first half or so then. They almost take it in turns to play bad guy.
Yeah, and this
was so well structured.
This was a point that I was hoping that you would bring up, because these two guys were massive baby faces at the time. It almost felt like they were testing the water to see who should be the heel in the match, see who could kind of draw the ire of the fans, and obviously it would end up being Roddy because he's so good at taking a crowd on an emotional journey, something that Bret would end up being an expert into later on in his career. But yeah, it felt like they were taking turns on who would be the face and who would be the heel, because you very rarely got face versus face matches. It was always good guy versus bad guy, especially in this era of the WWF. So it was very rare that we saw two good guys go head to head. And I suppose you need somebody to kind of play up to the heel. They both had a go at it, and Piper seemed to come off, especially with the spitting. That was horrific.
Yeah,
that's not to say that Bret didn't try, because he went for the sneaky roll up pin after pretending his shoulder was hurt. So they both definitely were playing heel and face at different points in this match.
I loved that spot. I loved it. Bret throws a drop kick, doesn't he, and fakes that he's come down on his shoulder, and then it's an inside cradle or whatever. Yeah, really clever stuff. Really clever stuff.
And what makes that spot even better, I mean, it's good selling by Bret, but the slap that Piper gives him for it afterwards, he puts some stank on that slap. Yeah. Really, you could see Bret's face just light up once he got cracked with it. It's brilliant.
We then come to the blood, Magsy, don't we? We then come to Bret bleeding quite heavily. Now, this here was a blade job, but Bret didn't want people to know. Vince McMahon, you read Bret's book and there's various other stories about it as well. At the time, the WWF had a no blood policy. They were told, point blank, no blood in this match. Bret and Piper kind of thought, yeah, we're going to use a bit of blood.
We'll see. We'll see, Vince.
So Bret does blade here, but he blades in a way that comes from a punch from Piper to try and make it look like it was hard way, like it was an accidental cut.
And he got away with it.
He got away with it, yes.
Vince didn't fan him. I think
No.
it wasn't it. I'm sure Flair got fanned in an event.
Yes, this same one.
Flair
versus Savage.
Fan. Yeah,
Flair versus Savage sort of for the world title on this same card. Flair was blatantly blading, and apparently he and Savage both got fined. And in Bret's book, it says $500 each for the blood. So yeah, quite a substantial amount. So
and Bret got away with it.
That sneaky bastard, isn't he?
Yeah, these Canadians, you can't trust them.
Yeah, and everyone's all like, oh, Bret got screwed.
Yeah.
He would have dropped the title on the following night on Raw. He promised bollocks.
Yeah. He'd have dropped it on Nitro in the bin. Medusa style.
We get a double clothesline here, which is, I think, something that we don't see a great deal in wrestling anymore. But it's so simple but effective because it gives a chance for the crowds to sort of calm back down and then come back up again, which is what happens here, Magsy, isn't it?
And it's a really kind of short one. Usually when you see a double clothesline, both wrestlers are running the ropes and you can kind of see the move coming a mile off. I forgot that this double clothesline actually happened, and they're really close together when they actually pull it off, but it still looks very, very legitimate.
Piper goes to the top rope when he regains his footing. And then we get this weird situation where Bret kind of catches him on the top rope, but hangs him by his feet are over the top rope, and Bret's got Piper's hair, and then just throws him face first on the deck. And I just thought, man, that's gotta hurt so bad. Yeah,
I think it's the second time he actually throws Piper on the floor, because in the opening kind of like catch can wrestling, there's a point where Bret's got a wrist lock. And he actually, Piper's trying to get out of it and kind of like escape. And Bret yanks on his arm, and Piper actually face plants on the floor as well. So, yeah, he took a few shots to the head, did old Roddy.
We get a sharpshooter attempt, which I love that hold, but I like the way that Piper fought back and pushed the leg back and so on. It was so simple but so effective, which again is something that I come back to in pro wrestling that I love. I like things to look realistic. I think the best way of looking realistic is to keep things relatively simple, and this works here for me.
Yep, and then we see Bret go for the pin, and then when Piper kicks out, Bret starts to, I think he drops an elbow and then goes to do the typical second rope elbow, which Piper telegraphs, and he ends up Bret ends up eating boot.
He does, and we get a ref bump pretty much straight after this as well, don't we?
And this poor ref, I ridiculed him on that 90s Wrestling podcast for having a head and a hairdo like a helmet. Just horrific. It was. This was one of the moments in the match where you could see it coming a mile off. The ref was very much out of position, and you could tell he was setting himself up to be ref bumped. And then it's when he does get hit by Bret. Bret has to kind of almost stretch to make contact. The ref did well in selling it, don't get me wrong, but it did feel a little almost as if they were out of position. But that, I don't think that really takes that much away from the match, because there's a few times where it doesn't exactly go perfectly. I think there's a spot where both of the guys were meant to go over the top rope, and they kind of struggled a little bit, and eventually it happened. But normally I would kind of like it would take me out of the match, but in this match it didn't, because it's just Bret and Roddy. They get you invested in the match so much that you kind of gloss over those little errors for them. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just their charisma, I suppose.
That's what you're talking about, where it's like almost like the crossbody, isn't it? Bret hits a crossbody on Piper, and they're supposed to sort of just tumble over the top rope together, but it doesn't quite work, and it looked clunky. It looked a bit messy, but I didn't think nothing of it at all. Obviously, it was a bit mistimed and so on, but I think it still looked realistic to me.
And I think there's another spot where Bret is meant to be getting clotheslined over the rope, and he's not quite in position. He kind of takes the clothesline from Roddy on his shoulder rather than like on the chest. They still end up he still ends up going to the floor, but it just kind of like it looks a little bit off. But you give them leeway because of just how good the guys are. They kind of make it look like that's how it's meant to have gone, I suppose.
Yeah. Whilst the referee is down struggling, Bret is sent into the steps on the outside by Piper, and then Piper goes and gets the ring bell. And then we have a long, drawn-out segment where Piper has stood over Bret. Bret's bleeding, can't get to his feet properly. Piper's looking like he's going to clock him with the ring bell, but can't quite bring himself to do it. And I thought this was really well done. I thought this was just great storytelling. It adds that aspect to Piper of he's always been the bad guy, and from the majority of his career he was the heel, and he wouldn't have thought twice about using this on Hogan back in the day and all that sort of stuff. But here it's almost toying with his past, but he doesn't quite pull the trigger on it. I think it's really, really well done, Magsy.
Yeah, and again kind of leads into the fact that these were both faces. These were both wrestlers that got cheered every time they come to the ring, and every time Piper threatened to use the ring bell, the crowd were in uproar. You could see actual people in the front rows waving Piper to not hit him with the bell, and he's looking around and getting the crowd reactions. And then when he throws the belt out, the bell essentially saying that no, he's not going to do it, Heenan calls it a sick display, which I thought is just perfect Bobby Heenan then.
Yeah, it is. And that basically then brings us to the finish. Piper throws the bell away, applies the sleeper hold, which was his finisher, and the referee then starts stirring a little bit. Bret kind of makes it to the corner, half climbs up the ropes, kicks off, falls backwards onto Piper, and whilst still in the sleeper, rolls over and pins Roddy Piper's shoulders to the mat. And I bloody love this finish. It's fantastic. This is wrestling to me. He's in a hold. He counters it. He wins the match from a counter. He hasn't got to hit his finish. We haven't got some ridiculous distraction. We haven't got it. It looks real. It feels real. This is fantastic.
Yeah, I absolutely, totally agree with you. And this period of Bret Hart was so good at not needing to hit his finisher. There's been, I think, a few years on, the King of the Ring, he wins all his matches in 3 different ways. That just shows how intelligent of a wrestler he was. And this, I thought, was a brilliant finish. Piper having the upper hand, Bret essentially crawling on his hands and knees, down and beaten, and then able to eke out that victory. That's the mark of a champion, when you can still win even though you've been absolutely destroyed. Yeah, it was brilliant storytelling, and made Bret, who was, I would say, on the cusp of being one of the leading faces in the WWF. I think this is the match and the result that maybe pushed him over the top. This is going to be the guy in the next few years.
Yeah. Well, yeah. By the end of the year, he was world champion. His first, what we got here, WrestleMania. So then you have SummerSlam, where he drops the Intercontinental Championship to the Bulldog. And then by the time the next pay-per-view comes around, Survivor Series, he is world champion. He's defending it against Shawn Michaels on that pay-per-view. So we're off to the races with Bret as the singles competitor who is, in theory, the face of the company after the steroid trial and Hogan and Warrior sort of departing and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, definitely off to the races with him there, which is really interesting when you consider, a few months prior to this, he was tapping up WCW for more money. But there we go. Anyway, I'm not going to let it go. Mugsy, out of 10, what are we thinking?
Yes, it's a great match. I think that Bret has had better matches, but then this is still relatively early in his singles career. This may well be Piper's best WrestleMania match. It's really, really good. And despite all the kind of like the missteps, the story is told so well. So this is easily an 8.5 for me.
Yeah, I've got 8. I've got 8 out of 10.
That's fair.
I think this is great. And again, it comes back to everything I like about professional wrestling. It looks realistic. Everything they do is believable. The commentary is superb. It makes me laugh, but they're serious when they need to be. And this finish, I bloody love this finish. It's superb. So yeah, just brilliant stuff for me, Max.
Yeah, absolutely agree. It was a great pick by whoever won that poll.
All those many, many moons ago. Magsy, where do you want to go next week, my friend? Where are you linking from? Well, linking to from this.
So I was toying all day with breaking the rules of chain wrestling.
What a surprise.
I actually had 3 ideas in mind. The first one was the link was Piper and his boxing match against Mr. T, and I actually wanted to cover all of the WrestleMania boxing matches that we've seen.
Oh, wow.
I think there's 5 altogether. And then I deviated from that, and I thinking about Piper versus Mr. T at WrestleMania 2, and I thought maybe we could cover the triple main event, because obviously WrestleMania 2 was at 3 different stadiums.
Yeah.
But I thought I'd simplify it, and I'll start a new year sticking to the rules. So I'm going to link to one match, and that match is WrestleMania 1, Hulk Hogan and Mr. T versus Paul Orndorff and Roddy Piper.
You are kidding me.
No.
I'm going to have to think on my feet now, because that was mine.
Oh, well, I'll link to the boxing matches then. So
no, it's all right. I got an alternative. I've always got a backup, Mags. I've always got a backup. My alternative is quite straightforward. My alternative is going to use Bret Hart as the link, and we're talking about his rise to the main event picture here and so on. IC title here, but main event picture by the end of the year, and WrestleMania 9, and then that disgusting shit that happened to Hogan and all that there. Right, sort of the start of 94. He's heading back to the main event of WrestleMania, and he does that by accomplishing a joint winners spot at the Royal Rumble. So I thought we could take a look at Royal Rumble 1994.
Oh, Jesus. Don't pick that, folks. But I do like the way that you've wangled your way out of watching multiple matches again by having an alternate.
How have I wangled my way out of watching alternate matches?
No, multiple matches.
Yeah.
Because I put forward multiple match picks and you go, no, I'll use my alternative.
All right, no, fine. Okay, fine. You want to go to the boxing? No, that's fine. We'll go with the boxing matches.
I'm sticking with my guns. I want to watch Hogan and Mr. T team up to face Paul Orndorff and his tiny hand and
oh my God. That's evil of you.
Jeremy Beadle of wrestling.
Oh dear. So those are your links for next week. Vote on the Twitter poll which way you want to go. We have the main event of WrestleMania 1 from Madison Square Garden, Roddy Piper and Paul Orndorff versus Hulk Hogan and Mr. T. Or we have the 1994 Royal Rumble. The poll will be up sometime later in the week. Vote, retweet, and all that good stuff. But it has to be on Twitter. So if you haven't got a Twitter account, then open one and vote, because we're worth it, I think.
Certainly. Absolutely we are.
There we go. Magsy, quick scan through the chat before we depart this evening, my friend.
Yeah, I think everyone has settled in and relaxed, because the only real one we have is Scottish Daddy saying Piper loved playing the heel. Face Piper felt so weird, and he's right. Piper is so good at being the heel, but I also have a massive soft spot for an excitable face Piper. I think he's one of those guys who can play both sides of the coins equally well. And we've also had Facebook user giving the thumbs up. Oh, and just as I was about to write it off, King's Pigs Bladder saying it was a great match. Yeah, absolutely. Just a classic wrestling match. If you were to show somebody a really good wrestling match, you couldn't go far wrong with this match.
Yeah, I think you're spot on. So then, Magsy, do you want to let people know whereabouts they can find you, if it's worth it or anything like that, before we depart?
It's always worth it. I mean, you can read my tweets from a year ago if you'd like, because I think that was the last time.
For the whole timeline.
So it's down here at Podfather Mags, or I'm on TikTok at Mags or Pods, or I don't post there either, but follow me and we can have a chat in the DMs if you'd like.
Oh, slide into your DMs, Magsy, yeah. For anything I'm involved in, the best place to find it would be on the network that carries this show, at SJP World Media. And you can find that on Facebook and Twitter. On Facebook, there is a private group where this show actually does go live as well. So join the group if needs be. There's also a page as well where links get shared. But Twitter is always the main asset or main use, I think, that we have at SJP World Media. And this week, the network's firing back up completely with regards to where we've been over the last couple of weeks with illness in the house and Christmas and so on. Well, obviously, we have Chain Wrestling live right now. Tomorrow, the Doctor Who pod returns, looking at an episode of Doctor Who Dan and I both fucking hated. So there you go. If you want to hear us both moan and whinge, tune into that tomorrow morning. Wednesday morning, you have the audio podcast version of this show, as well as In the Corner with Benny Mac, and a couple of special guests on that show, looking at last year's Rumble in preparation for this year's Rumble. On a Thursday, we have Nitro Nights, very, very quickly heading now towards Bash at the Beach 96. We're only a couple of weeks away before the whole NWO thing kicks off properly. So check that out. Danny and I are having an absolute blast recording that. On Friday, oh, good God, what comes out Friday? I can't remember now. On Friday, we have regularly scheduled hostilities from the States. People looking at modern day wrestling for us, watching Raw and SmackDown, so we don't necessarily have to. Saturday, you have Farty Towels podcast, looking at Faulty Towers as well. And there's other shows coming back and so on. Just go give it a follow, a like, a subscribe, hit the little bell notifications whenever anything comes out at SJP World Media on all your podcast players. But most importantly, you can find this show on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter at Chain_Wrestling. That's at Chain_Wrestling. Magsy, I'm off now to go and watch King of the Ring 93 and see Bret Hart win 3 matches in a different way, and I wonder how that would have gone if that was Starrcade 93 in WCW. Because I'll speak to you next week, my friend.
Bye-bye, folks.